Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Loudwire Podcast. My name is Graham.
I'm Joe.
And we've got a twofer for you today. Yes, we've got two guests.
Two for Thursday.
It is Thursday. We've got Metalocalypse creator and voice actor and all-around death clock genius, Brendon Small. We've got him in first. We'll be talking a bunch of stuff with him.
So exciting to have that guy in here. I mean, I remember watching Metalocalypse growing up, and we were in college, we watched it.
Yeah.
And to have him sitting here is going to be pretty cool.
And we've also got Devin Townsend, which we recorded a different day, and that's just going to be me interviewing
I was at a
Debbie.
festival. I mean, I've never really been bummed to be at a festival, but knowing that I was missing a chance to sit down and talk to Debbie about that new album, which is beyond brilliant. Little sad about that, but hey, seeing a bunch of bands over the course of 3 days.
Yeah, you made a mistake. Me and Dev, we talk about basically just life for about 20 minutes, and you'll hear that it's basically just our own existential ramblings and theories on life and the great unknown and whatnot. So that's coming up to you in a very short time. But first, as we said, Brendon Small, he's going to talk about all the
problems with getting the last bit of Metalocalypse aired.
Yeah, the issues with Adult Swim. We're going to go into that very deep as we possibly can. Find out what exactly happened, why they wouldn't want to actually air a finale of basically their most popular show, and at least to metalheads, well, obviously metalheads, but their most popular show. And I don't know how long. I mean, it
doesn't make any sense.
That shows a legitimate phenomenon, and they chose not to do an ending even when, get this, $2 million was independently raised by Brendon Small to make the episode. So no financial reliability from Adult Swim at all. They had absolutely nothing to lose and still nothing. So we're going to talk to Brendon about that. We're going to learn all about what happened with Metalocalypse. And also, for the Rocker versus Writer segment today, we talked to Brendon about which real-life metal band would make for the greatest cartoon. But before we get into that, one thing I want to talk to you guys about is yesterday, we released the 100th episode of Wikipedia Fact or Fiction. Yes. I hope that some of you, if you're on our YouTube channel, if you're listening to this on our YouTube channel, I hope you know what Wikipedia Fact or Fiction is, because we've only been doing it for the last 3 years.
Dude, you've probably cleared up the most nonsense in metal history of anybody ever.
Yeah, it's been fun. So, wanted to celebrate 100 episodes of Wikipedia Fact or Fiction, one of my favorite things to do ever. It was kind of the launching point for our YouTube channel, and we've gotten so many subscribers and over 100 million views ever since then. And I just wanted to take a little minute to say thank you. I want to tell you how much I appreciate everyone who's watched one episode or all 100 episodes, everyone who's left a nice comment, everyone who's shared it, anyone who has written nonsense on Wikipedia for me to clear up with these amazing musicians. So I wanted to take a minute to say thank you, because you don't normally hear from me all that personally, because obviously when we're doing interviews, it's not about us. So I wanted to say thank you all. I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you for letting me do 100 episodes of this series. So here it is. Brendon Small, everybody, here on the Loudwire Podcast. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button on iTunes. It's time to sit down
and shout.
Do you think Charlie Rose is Axl Rose's father?
God, no. I don't, but you never know, because
I think they both really like alcohol a lot.
Yeah, but I mean, it could always be the dad who's really secretly disappointed in his son. Yeah. So you never really know, even though the son's success.
Let's start that rumor today. Charlie Rose is Axl Rose's father.
Is Axl Rose's father.
There.
And is disappointed in him, but he's playing stadiums.
Do metalheads know who Charlie Rose is?
I don't know if they watch the news.
Yeah, well, Charlie Rose is, if you don't know who he is, he has a famous talk show that's a long form. It's kind of like, everyone knows what Mark Maron's show is, the WTF
Oh, totally.
show.
Yeah.
Big
It's
fan.
kind of like that before there was that. It's not as cool. It's not as dirty. It doesn't go as dark or deep, but it's kind of like that. He's a good interviewer. So there you go. Now you know who he is, and I think he's on like CBS morning show now. Where
Yeah,
he's
that's
not kind
why-
of used to his potential.
That's kind of where I know him for.
Yeah.
But yeah, we want to welcome Brendon Small
Thank you for
to
having
the
me.
podcast. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Turns out I'm in New York.
Yeah, no,
We tried
finally.
to set this up, and we both blew it. We both thought the other one was on the other person's coast.
Right, yeah,
I live in Los
exactly.
Angeles, and you live here in New York. And we set it up. We're like, great, I'll see it too. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm 3,000 miles away.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, come to the office in New York. And
And
it's
we
like,
we just
Oh.
both. I thought, yeah. You thought I lived in New York. You must.
I thought you were going to be in New
Oh,
York
you thought I
or
was gonna be,
whatever.
yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
But-
or I thought you were gonna do like an ISDN thing. I don't know. Whatever. Here we are.
but here we are in
They
person.
wouldn't fly us
thankfully.
out to
They
California.
wouldn't fly you out.
No,
Wow.
of course. No,
Couldn't get the budget. What are you gonna do?
I don't know. We got to work at this.
We'll
man.
work on it. Yeah. You gotta raise some money.
So, I mean, I know we're all excited about Galacticon too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there was a recent interview with Gene Hoglan who was basically saying that it's going to basically be a new Death Clock record. Like,
Kind of minus the name, minus the logo, but
yeah.
Well, here. Let me tell you this, because I'm not going to be that good of an interviewee because I'm still making the record right now.
Okay.
So what I'm doing right now is here I am in New York. I'm spending a weekend just to be in New York because I like being here. Unfortunately, I'm here on the hottest weekend. I may as well
It's
be
awful,
in Rio
yeah.
de Janeiro.
It's terrible now.
Yeah, the only thing this has better is no Zika virus so far.
Not yet.
But it's good to be here, and I will. Next week, I'm spending the week teaching heavy metal to children in
Beautiful.
Woodstock. So I do a thing with, and I did this with Scott Ian last summer, and I did it by myself the summer before, and I did it the summer before. So I keep on coming back and teaching kids in a hot, sweaty room heavy metal, and that's why I'm here. But and it's also given me a break from doing vocals for the Galacticon 2 record. I can't tell you too much about. What I can tell you is that I've got really fun. What Gene heard so far was the composition, the song structure. I gave him before we went into the studio were. I figured he's so busy. Gene's doing drums.
He's
for
doing a million
everybody.
things, yeah.
He had just gotten out of the studio doing a Testament record. His chops are really up. I mean, he's always great. He's Gene Hoglan. And I knew I had just a few amount of days with him, so I had to really make sure all my songs were kind of ready to go. I couldn't dick around. Because sometimes, I can loop a section and go like, let's see, what'll happen here, something else. And we get creative, and if Gene pipes up and says something, goes, hey, I had a thought, or he drops a drumstick at a really important part, right?
yeah.
Wait, that's the space we needed. He did that somewhere on this record. When you finally hear Galacticon 2, you'll hear there's a space, and he's like, sorry, Brendon, drop my drumsticks. And I go, whoa, leave that in there. That sounded cool. And we did that. So I was like, any accident that happens, basically, I want you to beat my ideas with the Gene Hoglan ideas, and I want any
Yes.
accident is welcome. So he played his ass off, I can tell you that.
Of course.
The songs there's stuff I'm in the point, and this is what happens in every record I make, from the Death Clock to Galacticon, whatever it is, to the rock opera. I'm at a point where I hate it. And
Okay.
where I have moments where I'm like, I think I wrote the coolest song in the world. And then 2 minutes later, I'm like, I think I wrote the shittiest song in the world. And then 2 minutes later, I'm like, I think I wrote the coolest song in the world. And then 2 minutes later, I think I wrote the shittiest song in the world.
Well, you hear that from a lot of creative people. Like, no matter what
It's
it is,
an important part of the process. It really is. Everyone's got to do it. So if you're sitting there and you're a young songwriter, you've got to recognize that I just know that I'm at the part where I have my hazmat suit on and it's just I'm shoveling garbage. So I
Yeah.
just know I've got to keep this suit on and get through the garbage so I can get to the fun stuff.
Yeah, you need to realize self-hatred is an important part of the process.
Yes,
In
you've got
the
to
end of
loathe
it.
oneself. It's really important. If I thought everything I did was great, I'd be a problem.
Yeah,
I have
that's
to-
the wrong way to go.
We've got to police ourselves, in anything that we do creatively. That's part of, I think, one of the most important things. Is if you're going to be an actor, you have to direct yourself. Mm-hmm. You can't wait for a director to tell you some amazing piece of inspiration. You kind of have to show up with it. You have to find all that stuff. You have to direct yourself. If you're, you have to edit yourself if you're a writer. You have to make sure you're only leaving in the parts that are important, if you're putting a script together. And if you're a musician, you have to circle the coolest riff out of the 35 riffs that you wrote and
Yeah.
go, I think that's worth listening to. So,
sure.
I don't know. Go on. I'm going all over the place. I had a lot of coffee, and I've been walking for 13 miles in Manhattan.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean,
degree day.
yeah. But obviously we're all bummed out by the Adult Swim thing, and that they kind of didn't, they weren't gonna bring back Metalocalypse, and I read that, they didn't want to put up the money, so you found these backers who were going to raise $2 million to make this thing happen, and they still said no.
They said like a hard no. Yeah.
Wow.
There wasn't even any debate on
there was
the table,
no debate.
just...
There was not even a return phone call. It was a hard no.
That's so bizarre.
It was real about as hard as you could possibly get. It's about as hard of a no as you could possibly get, which is kind of strange. Look, show business is show business. I can't really complain about it. What I need to do, what's important for me to live my creative life, is to stand back and look and go, hey, I had a pretty good run at this show. This show didn't exist, and someone was going to probably do this show before me, and they were going to screw it up in some way. So I'm glad I got there first, and I'm glad I did it the way that I thought it needed to be done. So I'm lucky, any way you slice it. I wanted to end it in a way, and they were kind of, it's basically like a crappy relationship at the end where we should probably break up.
Yeah.
But they kept on dangling the idea of doing this thing in front of me. So I was like, okay. And then dangling other TV show ideas and stuff like that. And I thought, well, everything I want to do is not necessarily an Adult Swim show right now with what they're doing. And so I said, look, all I really care about doing is wrapping this show up. That's all I mean, if you're going to call me, this is all I care about. Yeah. This is about maybe a year and a half ago I said that. So I go, I don't know if I'm going to pitch any other shows or anything else because I just don't think I'm on the Adult Swim wavelength right now. With what I want to do, I want to do stuff it's like metal. I mean, look, what I like about Metalocalypse is character driven, big world. Music is an important component, and it really is about if the music sucked, the show would probably be okay. But if the characters sucked, the show wouldn't be okay. So I want to make sure I have strong characters and good story to tell.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
agree with that for sure.
And and for me as being, a music student and all that stuff, what a great opportunity for me to be able to cram a bunch of music in there and turn it into its own thing, So that's all I really want to do. And it's character stuff. And they're not really interested in the same thing I'm interested in. So I said, okay, I just want to do this stuff. Then they called me like 6 months later and said, hey, we think we got money for a finale. And then that kind of fizzled out too. They couldn't raise enough money, and I thought, well,
if you raise your own money,
if we have people who would basically acquire the license and let Adult Swim air it first, blah blah blah, all this, whatever happened, whatever we tried to do was all really good work, and the fans really stepped up, and all these people tweeted and all kinds of stuff. What I think really happened was they drove Adult Swim insane, and I think Adult Swim, for some reason, I don't know why. I think they took it personally. That
the
all
Metalocalypse
these fans,
Now campaign.
I think they took it very personally. And the truth was that people were saying, like, hey, what the hell? Where's our show? We're here for this show.
Sure.
Can you give it to us? We're going to watch it like crazy. And they said no. They said no. I think somebody's thin-skinned and somebody got their feelings hurt. That's. I think it boils down to something that simple.
Which is weird because a lot of times with that kind of stuff, it comes down to the bottom line. And if you demonstrate that there's such a huge demand for this, you think it just be a no-brainer. Like, oh, that many people want this. Why, let's do it.
That is the logic that I would usually go with. But that's why I'm going with the feelings hurt theory right now. Somebody at the network has really thin skin and got their feelings hurt, and they're saying a resounding no. And now I think they're at the place where they've got to commit to it. Otherwise, they think they look like a double jerk or something. But what they did was they created a scenario that's just totally unnecessary. We should have just done it and moved on and been done. But you know what? Now here's what the story's gonna be forever. It's a total. It should have been made.
Yeah.
And the fans will never be happy with the network. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, when you talk about the fans are so hardcore.
Oh yeah.
And not only just about the show, but Death Album 1, 2, and 3 were all consecutively the highest charting death metal albums of all time.
I know.
2 beat 1, 3 beat 2.
Yeah.
It was absolutely insane.
I know.
The way that just the quality of everything and how people kept coming back. I just don't. I don't understand.
I know. You know,
I don't understand.
It'll, like I said, it's going to go down as a head scratcher. And that's, you know what, though? I mean, here's the thing. This, everything you're saying is based on logic. You guys are all using
We think
logic
so.
really well.
Thank you.
But I will say this. Television and show business does not work on logic. You know
No.
the term, that's showbiz?
Yeah.
That means that anything could happen. We could all just be annihilated and killed and squashed at any moment. That's what it is. And I knew this from my first show, Home Movies, which is, absolutely nothing to do with Metalocalypse, but it was a really fun show.
I love that show.
I appreciate it. Thanks. And we got canceled twice. So we got canceled by our first network, and then Adult Swim picked us up. Mm-hmm. Again, so if it sounds like I'm complaining about Adult Swim, all I'm doing is trying to figure out the logic. And again, this is what for other people besides me, because I've gone like, okay, I've got to move forward because I get it. It's show business. But the truth is that Adult Swim has given me work for the better part of like 16 years.
Yeah.
So I can't really complain about any of this stuff. Otherwise, I look like a jerk. So they've been nice to us, but Home Movies got canceled twice, and I realized TV is a temp job. And so then you guys, like, you're asking me now about like Galacticon 2 versus Death Clock. I don't own Death Clock. I don't own the name. I entered into a partnership with the network.
That was the issue.
Which is a very, and it was a really smart, because Home Movies was owned by the production company, Metalocalypse and Death Clock and all that stuff. We sold it to the network, and that's a different way to do it. And in a lot of ways, that's a better way to do it, because they're going to advertise their own shows a little bit more than a show that they license from somebody else.
Yeah.
They're going to spend their own internal money, and that paid off very, very well for Metalocalypse. So given the same scenario, I probably would have done it identically.
Okay.
The truth is that whatever I do musically is going to sound like something I do, and if it's going to be heavy, it's going to probably have hints of Galacticon and Death Clock. Look at the Galacticon record. If you've heard it, if you haven't, check it out, because there's a different tone than, it's the same players as myself, Brian Beller, who's an amazing bass player who went to Berklee College of Music right before I did, and Gene Hoglan is Gene Hoglan, who's, Superman on drums. Yeah, he's insane. And the style of riffs or whatever it is that I naturally gravitate towards, if you sing heavy over it, it sounds like Death Clock. If you sing kind of like more melodic over it, it sounds like Galacticon. So you're gonna get it. I don't want to tell you what the record's gonna sound like, because I can only tell you it's gonna sound cool, and I'm gonna give it my stamp of approval when I'm finished. But I'm right in the middle of the shit right now. So,
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
But we're not to expect the Death Clock characters to make an appearance.
Again, I don't own those, so I don't really. I couldn't do it.
That would be infringement on your part.
That would be something. Yeah, if I were to use their . or any of that stuff, or
Now, was there anything you could have done contractually to retain those rights?
I don't think so. I really don't. I talk to my lawyers about all this stuff. You have to have a lawyer in showbiz, and you got to talk to them about stuff. The question is, like, if I wanted to buy the network out, first of all, I don't think they would ever sell it to me, and I don't think they're in the business of doing that. Anything that's out of the norm, they really, really are not interested in doing. Getting anyone's lawyer to call you back is Adult Swim has Turner Broadcasting's legal team, so they're spread thin. They do like maybe return a phone call a week, and it's just it's the slow liquid syrup of just nothingness, and it's the brutality that beats all. It's just nothing happening. So these are all things that I thought about. Again, I'd have to raise the capital to be able to do something like that, and I don't think they'd even return that phone call, to be honest. I don't think that's something they'd be interested in doing.
Right.
They don't sell their entities back.
No.
Plus, what if it's seriously? How many records have we sold, and how well is the TV show known?
Yeah.
What would they sell that back to me for?
Why-
What's a reasonable price for that?
Why would
$30 million? Let's say $10 million. Let's say $5 million. Guess what? I don't have any of that money. Let's say $1 million. I don't have that money.
Yeah, it would be some crazy number like that. I mean, with the sort of Death Clock swan song that you wanted to produce so badly, was that something that had already been written and ready to go?
Well, it was outlined. So basically, I knew what the main story is. So when I left Murderface if you saw the Doomstar Requiem, basically I was told during the Dooms, because I went to the head of the network and I said, I can wrap the whole show up right here.
Yeah.
I can do what I want to do before I go in the studio and start making it and writing and all that stuff. And he said, don't. He said, don't. I wish he hadn't. I wish he said, do. But he said, you don't want to do that. You don't want to he used the term push the button. You don't want to push the button on this show. And it's whatever. I mean, again, I can fault the guy if I want to, but he's the same guy that picked up the show and gave me all these opportunities to do the show. So whatever, good decisions, bad decisions, they all end up in the same wad. So what I did was story-wise is I left one of the characters in a lurch.
Okay.
And murder face. And that was going to be the beginning of the final story.
So you have the storyboard all done, but not really like the dialogue.
Not the
and
board.
everything.
I have basically like a really dense 8-page outline of exactly what happened, which is usually it's kind of like what happened with the Doomstar Requiem, is that I had kind of like a truncated movie style thing. It was like a 44-minute like a TV hour.
Okay.
And I told a lot of story, and it was basically, it's what it is the trajectory of the entire show. You meet 5 of the biggest assholes on earth, and you put them in a position where they have to put somebody before them. And that's what the Doomstar Requiem was.
Yeah.
And now that they have done that, and they've discovered this power that they have and all this stuff, how do you finish it? And who are they really up against at that point? And all that stuff. So it would have been cool.
It would have been.
I know.
Hopefully it's gonna be
One way
cool.
or another. I mean, I don't even know if I can legally do this, but I would love to tour and just tell people the story.
Like a spoken word.
Yeah.
I would love to just go and say okay, everyone gather around, and then I put a flashlight under my face.
Yeah.
And I play creepy music.
Get everyone around in
Everyone
a
gather
powwow
around,
circle.
semicircle around me, and I'm going to tell the story.
Get one of those little fake flames. That
Yeah,
they
get
have.
a fake flame with what is it? The plastic.
Yeah.
like a
kinda
little
cartoonish.
swishy little
Yeah,
campfire
really
thing.
create a really spooky scenario.
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe it could work.
I don't even know if I could legally do it. Those aren't my characters. It's not my,
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe one day I'll do that. It sure would satisfy. It would take a lot of pressure off the network. It would probably make people stop, clogging up their media inboxes.
Yeah,
I'm
those poor
sure.
social media interns. That's got to be pretty brutal.
Oh my God. I feel bad for
I
them.
went to a wedding of a guy who was married, and it's a good friend, a couple of friends. So the girl he was marrying, her father works at Adult Swim, and so a lot of other Adult Swim people were there. This is about a year ago. And one of the guys was the Facebook operator, and he just said, "You don't understand how many people are." And he just looked at me, and he's like, "I don't understand what's going on. Why this many people are doing this and nothing's getting done." So I don't understand. Obviously, I don't know what's going on.
Let's get into our rocker versus writer segment. Today, with Brendon Small, we're going to be debating or discussing
Yes.
what real-life metal band would make the greatest cartoon.
Real
It's a tough
life.
one. So lots of characters, lots of people that could end up being
Well,
great.
let's define what makes a great cartoon first.
All right,
Let's
do
define
that.
the criteria. What, in your opinion, makes it great? Because mine is different than everybody else's. Again, I'm the maker of the show. I'm not the watcher of the show. So my relationship with the show is very, very different than everybody else's.
I think something that you can watch at 2 a.m, tired off your ass, eyes red, and just be completely fixated by it in almost a self-hatred trance, if that makes sense. I mean, that makes for a good show. If you can get that audience, I think you're a success.
Okay. So you have feeling. There's that feeling. There's a natural. So what you're describing to me is a natural attraction to something that's glowing in front of you.
Yeah, the glowing screen.
No matter what your current state.
All right, what else? What
I
about
look
for you?
for character development and
Okay.
a well-rounded cast.
Okay, so what are some of your favorite animated shows right now?
Well, Metalocalypse is a real good show. Animated Bob's Burgers, I think, is
Burgers
really,
is
really
Same
great.
guys from
That's
Home
another
Movies on that.
Yeah, that's another one. Very dynamic characters. They kind of each fill out the other one.
Right.
Kind
Yeah,
of like a
the-
yin yang situation.
I loved Rocco's Modern Life growing up.
I remember that
If you
show.
watched
I remember
that
that.
was
one of my
Yeah.
favorites.
Tom Kenny was on that too, wasn't he? The guy who plays. He
Sponge-
used to be on. SpongeBob.
SpongeBob.
But the reason I
Yeah.
knew him was because he was on. But I know him anyway through the comedy world. But he was also on Mr. Show, which is one of the best comedy shows of all time. But he's just the go-to cartoon voice guy, and he did a lot of stuff on Home Movies too. Anyway,
Yeah. Regular Show is another one that I like.
regular show. Okay.
Kind of nice and lighthearted, which
Right.
is
That's like a Cartoon Network show, right?
yeah, I think it's still on Cartoon Network.
But I mean, the
I don't have
audience is
cable.
like kids.
So-
No, but it's like a Like Rocco's Modern Life was like a kid show too, but I also agree it was a really funny show and it's interesting and it was
way
subversive
beyond
and,
its years
yeah,
too.
Well, yeah, they got to make it fun. I remember being in college around that time and going like, this is actually pretty funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of the stuff is intended for a way older audience.
Yeah,
some of these jokes are landing for older people. Yeah.
Yeah, like
and that's another
Choky
thing I
Chicken.
like is Choky. It was called Choky's Chicken, and they had to
Choky
change
Chicken.
it to Chewy's Chicken because apparently 6-year-olds knew what choking the chicken meant.
They're gonna learn anyway.
I know. You might as well learn from
make
Nickelodeon.
it fun and don't talk about it. Yeah.
But that's another thing I like is multi-layered like that, where it kind of hits on a lot of different generations, where you could pick up like what you did with Metalocalypse,
sure,
where you have like a little bit of kind of the subtle joke. So if you're a casual like rock or metal fan, you could watch it, but it's on a different level. If you're really entrenched or if you're in a band, there's so many different dynamics that are going on just with the interaction.
It's funny, part of that comes from it's how you negotiate a creative relationship. And that can be musical, or that can be in the writer's room of making Metalocalypse. What I'll never really tell the full story of is how much this show really reflects how we were making this show.
Okay.
So meaning that on the show there were people that worked really, really hard and did their jobs and showed up, and there were people that were Toki and Murderface. And who were just making problems consistently, and I noticed it was happening, and I stood back, and the smartest thing I could do was just shut up and listen to what was going on around me, and I was like, the show is happening inside of the writer's room. The show is happening inside of the show. The show is happening in the line of production. This is fucking amazing.
Who's being slaughtered in that room?
Who's being exactly. That's the stuff that would be really uncouth of me to speak about. But there is.
Yeah, keep it quiet.
It was really fantastic. It was really, really happening. And the moments that I really got the most excited about were when I could pretty much lift a conversation that happened between people in the show and put it right on the screen.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's only a story I would tell with the microphones off. But it is some of the most titillating moments of my life were just to be able to transcribe exactly what was happening around me. But it's true. It's the creative relationship. So that's another layer of the show, is that something has to ring true. Otherwise, I don't understand why I'd watch it. So I watch cartoons where I go, where's my entry point? Everyone's being crazy. Okay. And then you learn very quickly from making comedy cartoons, being crazy and being out of your mind and having nonsense happen is almost hack at this point. We've seen that happen. It's very easy to have awkward pauses and make shit not make sense.
That's what people do in like commercials these days. I think that's
it's
one.
Adult Swim may have influenced in the wrong way, wrong parts of Adult Swim.
I think that's when you know that a certain style of comedy has become hack, when you start to see it on every commercial, when they use that same sort of
when your parents are making
and,
those kind of jokes and stuff like that.
That's when you got to move on.
It's time to say, okay, we have successfully plowed this field, and nothing is coming up anymore.
And the problem with the commercials too is like they're funny, they've got a gag. Nobody remembers what the brand is.
It's true.
You remember the joke? Nobody remembers what they're selling.
They're like, I can't get into advertising.
Well, for me, I think if I wanted to see a band become a cartoon, I would love to see Mastodon be a cartoon. I think they would be amazing. I think
I got to tour with them for 7 weeks, and I keep in touch with them. And I really love seeing those guys, and I've become very friendly with them. And the answer is, without a doubt, they would make a fantastic cartoon.
They would make the greatest cartoon. I feel like their superpowers, like Troy Sanders would be like sort of like this brutal caveman type guy. Like Bill Kelleher would have like total shred power that comes from his epic mullet and handlebar mustache. Like Bron Daler would have like octopus arms and like his crime fighting. And then Brent Hines would just be like doing drugs in the woods and develop some sort of psychic powers.
Brent is... all those guys, first of all, knowing those guys, the reason they're band is I love their band, and I love watching them evolve over the years, and I love hanging out with them. Yeah. And they're all funny as hell, and they're all really smart. And Bron and I are like the exact same age, and our references are, there's a few movies that we can do the entire dialogue to. So sometimes we just text each other just dialogue from a movie and just keep going through the entire scene until like we just get tired, we fall asleep.
Yeah, sure.
So like American Movie is one of those things.
Yeah,
have you ever seen American Movie?
Yes.
Well, American Movie, that's where pickles came from.
Really?
Yeah, I was going to do my own voice for Pickles, and the network was smart enough to say, you know what, we love all these characters, Pickles, let's work on that. And I thought, I don't know what to do with this guy yet. I just don't know who he is. And then I started doing, all I would do is watch, and still, it's like my comfort movie, American movie.
Yeah.
So Mark Borchardt, that was
the main director guy.
Yeah, the main dude,
Yeah.
the guy, the subject of the documentary. That was my version of his voice. And
No way.
You know, I'm from the Midwest also, so I kind of grew up talking like that a little bit until I moved to California. And accessing that was easier because, you know, we kind of have that twangy Chicago-y thing.
Don't you know?
There's a little of that. That's the Fargo thing. That's the hardcore, but the Wisconsin thing too. So so that's where he came from. And so Braun and I will just text each other pretty much the entire movie. He actually, a gift showed up the other day, and he got me the score of Coven on vinyl.
Oh,
It was. I was like, "What is this?" I'm not expecting anything from. And I looked at it, and it was from Braun, and I was like, "God damn it, what a sweet
what
guy!"
a lovely human.
It was really nice.
Joe, what do you think? Like, who do you want to see be a cartoon?
I mean, the obvious answer is going to be Guar there. But
We got the Guar-toon, which was
they did
incredible,
a Guar-toon.
which was great.
But like
Yeah.
musically, like they're one of my favorite bands, and I think so many people overlook the whole aspect of like really what they do. And Dave Brocky's commitment to that character was just unprecedented.
Dave Brocky, God bless him. I mean, he's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
And he hits
He
on
was-
so many different levels.
Yeah, and I didn't really get to spend. I mean, I got to meet a lot of members of Guar. I didn't really get to. I wish I could have toured with them. I mean, they're still going out, so maybe someday I will. But
Sure.
but I never got to tour with Dave, and I got to meet him, and we did some interview on the phone together where he was doing an interview thing, and he was just so funny, so fast on his feet. I remember one time I was in San Francisco, and I saw Guar. And he said a thing where I was like, this guy's got fucking balls of titanium. It's amazing. Because he went up on stage and he goes, it's so good to be here in San Francisco, the city that brought us AIDS.
That's just
And I just put my hands on my hips and I was like, you were so fucking funny and that takes so much balls. And the whole audience was just laughing and they just thought they all got the joke. And then one other night I remember, it was the night where Michael and this news hadn't broken. This is back in LA. This is a long time ago. And the news hadn't broken about Michael Richards and that tape where he's just saying the N-word.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, comedians are like, well, the guy's trying to find comedy and he's trying to do something edgy and it just didn't get there. And I don't believe but he is also being frustrated by a table of people and it was just a complete disaster and he's apologized either way. He spent every single in-between song just trying to like figure out what's going on through Michael Richards' mind. And the news hadn't really broken, so we're all kind of scratching our heads going, what's he talking about? And then someone like, and this before, I was like right when YouTube started, I think. So it was like 10 years ago or so.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was really hilarious that he was kind of doing social commentary in between all this stuff. And he constantly was. And he just had balls, man. He was funny as hell.
Because he was crass, but he was always salient with every point
But
that
with
he
the
made.
reason, I mean, what's the point?
it's-
You know, I mean, just to be crass is, it's not even. It falls on deaf ears. It doesn't even work. But to have, that's why Louis C.K. is funny. That's why Bill Burr is funny because they
Both
have
brilliant, yeah.
they have got their like razor sharp lawyers arguing a fucking terrible point that shouldn't be argued from the bad guy's side of something. And so was Dave Brocky doing that too.
Really.
It's like Pac-Man's, like they take it so far to one side that you just like come out on the other side and you're like, how did we even get
Well, it
here?
forces everyone to walk through an absurd logical terrain that's just twisting and turning and flat spinning in front of you. And you go, I see this logic and it's absurd, but I get it. You know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Another good cartoon I think would be Ghost, because the Papa Emeritus character on stage has so much like funny, lighthearted banter, and it's
very true.
You know, I haven't seen them live. I have their records and I have their most recent one, which I really like a lot. But
Essential live band, yeah.
yeah, I've got to
absolutely.
see them live. I haven't seen them live.
Yeah,
yet.
like they close with Monstrance Clock, and it's got the chorus "Come Together," and he prefaces it for like 3 minutes about celebrating the female orgasm. And then he's like, "Everybody, go home tonight," and he implores everyone to
love
just have
it.
sex with each other when they go home, and it's to turn that into a cartoon, they could have him at like Sunday, like, you know, they put Mass on TV on Sundays. Like if they had that with a cartoon for Ghost every Sunday, it starts off like they're at Mass, and then hijinks ensue with a bunch of
total
other stuff.
like evangelist style.
Yeah,
a TV evangelist style cartoon with Papa Emeritus. Oof.
What people don't realize, and I think what you guys are bringing out, is that bands in the metal world who we all think are serious and brooding and scary and all that shit are funny as hell. They're all, I've noticed through casting people from bands, I saw Enslaved one night, you know, Enslaved, Norwegian, black metal, evil, church burning, this, that, and the other thing, you know, related to that whole world in the 90s that was all fucked up and everything. And I remember in between songs, they're like, and now prepare yourselves for Mustang Sally. And they play one of their songs.
That's great.
And I swear to God, they said Mustang Sally, and I was like, oh, that is so funny, because that's the worst song in the world. That is maybe one of the worst songs of all time. I'm sorry.
Dominic the Donkey for me.
Dominic the Donkey.
Yeah, that Italian Christmas song.
Oh, sing it for me.
Oh God. Well, I am Italian.
I haven't heard this either. So.
Yeah, it's chingity ching, hee haw, it's Dominic the Donkey. He says donkey.
Donkey.
Dominic the
Keep
Donkey.
Going.
This sounds like a Borat song, but no,
Yeah.
I love it. I gotta get look. This sounds like your worst song. Sounds like my favorite song in the world.
You gotta look that up. Who would be like the metal super friends?
Super friends. Well, then you'd probably go into like a super group or something like that, wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, it could be a super group or just a collection of the greatest heroes in metal.
Like the most
you know
dynamic personalities.
Like who'd be Superman and Batman, Aquaman, like that kind of stuff, you know?
That's a good question. Jeez. Off the top of my head, I don't know.
I think Nathan Explosion can go, I'm not wearing hockey pads pretty well.
I know, it was funny. I got a lot of people saying that after that, because the first Batman, he didn't really speak in the guttural voice as much, but in the second one, he said, "I'm not wearing hockey pads."
Not the best
one. He did that whole thing, yeah. But oh geez, I don't know if I'm good at this game, because I mean, the reason bands work for me, especially like a real band, like a Mastodon, let's say for modern stuff, because I can go back into Metallica and Anthrax and all kinds of bands like that. But the reason a band like Mastodon works is that they're all creative. And this is what I think about this is a hard thing to keep alive over the years. But they're all creative in their own way, and I think they all add a certain flavor to something. And their attitudes...
They complement each other.
They really complement each other. I go back to, again, it's not the most metal band in the world, but the music is undeniably fantastic, and it influenced Death Clock like crazy. And I go back to Queen, thinking about every one of those guys. I can hear so when one guy writes a song, they bring it to the table and they queenify it, whatever they do, to make it sound like that. And I can tell that there's that Baroque element that Freddie Mercury and Brian May add to it. There's the rock and roll, kind of the more Zeppelin element that I think Roger Taylor adds. And there's that weird funk and drive and groove that Deacon adds to it. And I think everyone adds something to it. And that's a really important thing. So I don't know. It would be hard to cherry pick, and that's why super groups they're not always the most memorable thing, because they don't necessarily have that thing. You can't just set up a blind date and expect it to work.
Very true.
You've got to actually really have some kind of deep connection that you may not even like each other, but there's a connection, a creative connection. Or like Lennon and McCartney, their connection was that they were in competition with each other. They wanted to make sure that their song was better than the other guys.
That's very true.
And that's an important thing. That's a really important part of being creative, is to have that kind of like, God damn, that guy wrote a cool song, I got to beat it. And Queen was doing that too. Queen was like, we're not making any money. We're getting taxed like crazy by the British government.
Right.
And we're broke. And the only way I'm going to make any money is if I write the coolest single in the world and I beat out Freddie Mercury and I beat out Roger, whatever. So they were trying to write singles so badly, and they were trying to top each other, and they drove the band to this pinnacle of rock and roll music, And that's, And then you're at a place where you're kind of, it's a complicated relationship because there's your competition in the tour bus with you every single night when you're going to sleep. Like, God damn, that guy's, I'm going to do something. I'm going to get influenced by something and write something,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not answering your Super Friends question. And I'm also, I don't know how many more superhero movies I can deal with at this point. I really don't know if I can do it.
The Beatles made some good cartoons. That's very true. So Devin Townsend was here for a short period of time, and Transcendence is the new record, and I'm absolutely loving it. I know personally, it's been putting me in like this very unique space. It's the way that you want to be affected with music. You want music to better your mindset and your situation and help you cope with certain things in life. I live in New York City, and the commute here, going to the office every day, is stressful as hell because you've got sardines people just packed into the subway, and you're elbow to elbow, ass to ass with people who are just as pissed off as you are and just as annoyed that you have to be in like such close proximity with other people. Going to work, putting in your 8, 9, 10, 12-hour day. And I've been listening to Transcendence like nonstop because it puts me into a place where I feel almost unaffected by negativity around me. And this is what Devin and I ended up talking about here, is that he wrote this record as sort of a response to the ugliness in today's world, with the election, with, the hatred, war that we see, violence that we see, just the general ugliness that exists between people. And Dev was telling me before the podcast started that he was so almost overwhelmed by the ugliness that he needed to create something to combat it and to shed the layers of filth that he felt around himself. And this is what happened with Transcendence. He made this beautiful piece. And I think I understand. Transcendence affected me, I think, in the same way that it affected him, in that it became a pillow for your aching mind. And for him to make an album like this is truly beautiful. And, I only got him for a short period of time today, about 20 minutes. And I could have talked with him all day. This was a conversation that I love the intensity of. It could have gone on for hours, like a Joe Rogan Experience kind of podcast where you just talk about the nature of existence and life and creativity and all that. It's just great to be able to have a conversation with a guy like Devin Townsend who's constantly thinking and evaluating and appreciating the life that he has and the life of other people. So take a listen to this talk I had with him. Enjoy it. I hope he comes back again. What a great dude. All right, hey everybody, Loudwire Podcast here. This is Graham with the one and only Devin Townsend. So happy to have you here, dude.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you're here, especially today, because yesterday I went to go see Neil deGrasse Tyson do a lecture, and it put me in this great mood where I'm completely enamored with the beauty of life and the universe and nature and stuff, and that speaks exactly to what Transcendence is, I think. And he was having this great conversation with Sean Lennon was actually a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that he would just kind of be, a little bit maybe humorless and just kind of like too cool for the room, but he was really funny. He was blowing Neil deGrasse Tyson's mind by talking about that he is inspired by science. In Transcendence, you have lyrics like time is a human construct. So I want to know, about your influences when it comes to, science and like the greater vast universe and whatnot.
Well, I mean, I've always been interested in it, but I certainly don't claim to know much about it. I think that my connection to these things probably stem from moments of spiritual significance that I would trace back to early adolescence, and I think they're all rooted in the same kind of feeling. I had read up on synesthesia because people had told me that perhaps it was something that I had, but it always just seems like folks want to define everything. It's like you want to define your type of creativity or what type of music you are or how you stand politically or whatever. And without that definition, it's everything is chaos and we can't have that. So I had denied thinking that it was ever a thing. But in essence, what it comes down to is the thoughts, the emotions, the notes, the numbers, and it all kind of intertwines into certain feelings.
Yeah.
Numbers and colors are equated, so where a 2 would be a circle and blue and 3 would be triangular and dark green and D would be blue and sort of oblong. And so for me, my moments of spiritual significance were always more of a sense of something. And ever since I was a young kid, I always felt like those were the things that were of really the only true significance to write about, because it is beyond me or you. It's something that is sort of a collective unconscious. It's something to do with humanity in general that allows us to sort of participate in these same things and ultimately give us some sort of sense of unity. However, it's clear to me more now than ever that I don't understand any of it.
Yeah.
But those senses of what it is becomes clearer to me the more I pound through what it isn't. And that's what the records ultimately represent. It's like you've got a field of shit and you're just bashing through it, and then the shit solidifies into albums, and then hopefully at the end of it there's some sort of truth. And so science and the universe and nature and numbers and all these things play into it, because maybe just my nature is such that without that kind of connection to things that are earthy or ethereal, it just doesn't seem to be provocative enough for me to write about. Like, it takes a lot more now for me to get fired up to write about things than it did as well. So,
gotcha.
Some people are like, we're going to write about the election, or we're going to write about, the war or whatever. And I think that at this point, I just want to write about trying to get more towards that truth, whatever it is, and not in a religious sense. Just those moments of spiritual significance in the past have all had a thread that was very similar.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I want to talk about the wall of sound in this record, because it sounds like Phil Spector's wet dream. It really is like this incredible production. I almost feel like digital production has finally reached the point that you've been trying to push it towards for a long time now. And the wall of sound and Transcendence, the ethereal atmosphere, is, I feel, beyond your previous works.
A lot of that's to do with Nolly. Like,
yeah,
he helped me out with it, a huge deal. But it's still not right.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the next thing I'm going to do is going to be surround. I mean, if there's anything that propels me artistically at this point, and this is my catchphrase I've been using for this press cycle, is that I'm an imperfect perfectionist. So if I ever did get it right, there'd be no reason to continue, but I'm never going to get it right. So I think the knowledge of that is healthy, because then you're not doing it for any, as I say, altruistic reason. You're just sort of doing it because it's there's a compulsion to do so. But I'm always going to try and refine it. I'm always going to try and get it closer to that image, to that shape, to that vibe that we talked about in the first question, and perhaps spreading it out into some different speakers and all this will allow me to represent it more. I just remember hearing in my mind's eye this fractal of musical geometry that is just wherever you go, it's infinitely deep. And as a result of it being infinite, there's this real sense of centeredness, because no matter how far you go in any of these directions, you're never technically moving. So it's this stillness that's tethered to all this chaos, and it's just, in any way you go, it's like anywhere you poke, it's like, you know, a million voices, or there's like 1,000 trumpets, or there's one voice, or there's like a singularity or whatever. And so in my mind's eye, as a puzzle, as an artistic puzzle, it's really compelling to try and achieve that every time, but you're never gonna. It's this futile thing, but gives us something to do.
Is this something that you feel like you can imagine, or is what you want almost beyond your own comprehension?
Oh, of course. And
Beyond?
I don't want it. I just love it.
Yeah.
And I think it's also interesting as well. I had some kids come up to me the other day after a show, and they were asking me about some of the music, and they had thought that it was really like a special piece of music.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you should make your own too, like, because this is just me, and my bias, my middle class white Canadian male bias, is such that my view on this is going to be colored by all of that. And there's some people that would hear my stuff and just be like, Jesus Christ, man, it's just this soundtrack to a nervous breakdown. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say is no different than what all of us are participating in. It's just, this is my view of what it is. Look, isn't this great? Isn't this great? This is as close as I think I can get to it.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately nothing unique. And so that's what I was even saying to those kids, is just like, figure out how to say your song and do that. And then it becomes much less about projecting on people, right? Like me or you being essentially different than everybody else. It's just, no, we were all privy to different sounds through these experiences. And I do admit, though, that once you're on this path where you are able to actualize this stuff, and I do have an audience, and I get to now write books and symphonies and all this sort of stuff, each one of those experiences contributes to the next one. So you're deeper and deeper into your own truth. But ultimately, it's just my trip, and it's no different than anybody else's trip, you know? And that's one thing that I really think is important.
Yeah. I mean, this album, I feel, it's interesting that you kind of bring up a certain frustration in wanting to create something that just you can't quite grasp yet, because I think a lot of this album, it feels like it flows from kind of a frustrated place into finally an air of
surrender.
Yeah, maybe a bit of serenity, but still knowing that things aren't perfect.
Well, that's what I mean by surrender.
Surrender, yeah.
Yeah, because at that point it's and that's been the theme of it all, like deconstruction as well. It's like theme of that is you have no choice but to surrender. You'd be a fool not to. It's just a one-way ticket to madness if you don't. But But I think that's where the humor comes in when we're talking about this. It is a constant undercurrent of irritation in everything that I do, that it will never be right.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the humor comes from the knowledge of that. But also, there's a beauty in continuing to try, for me, because what it says to me about my own creative process is that I do love it. And that almost validates existence in some sense, because to love something is also to know that it's going to go away. And
very true, yeah.
then to accept that something's going to go away. It's like making peace with death on some level. And I think that, when we had kids, it was really interesting to me because up to that point, I felt that I was so hesitant to truly give myself to anything, like to love.
Wow.
Well, because was for me at least a real defense mechanism, because if you don't like really give yourself to something, then when it goes away, you're protected from feeling that loss. So when all of a sudden you had kids and this biological switch flips, and I'm not advocating kids, I'm just saying in general, this is what part of my trip is. I had kids, and then it's like, well, you have to surrender to this. You have to love him because you do. And then part of that love is that fear of just like, well, but everybody's going to die. Mm-hmm. And then those two things hand in hand, I think, is when, for me personally, I felt for the first time, and also sober, that, wow, I'm really alive now. This isn't like a photocopy of a life. I'm not participating in this from afar. This is really raw. And that rawness is the next level for me on this sort of search for trying to be actualized. Because without that, I think you can make assumptions on what it means, and you can make massive statements on what it means. But without that vulnerability of like, oh my God, like this is real, I just don't know if what you're doing is of much like authentic value to your own spirit.
Yeah. I wish you had been like part of this discussion that I went to yesterday, the Neil deGrasse Tyson talk.
He kept calling me, but I was like, Neil, I don't know, man.
You got to get in that, man. You have to. And, like hearing you speak about this, there was this, during the question and answer portion, there was this girl who probably wasn't more than like 13 years old. And she went up to the microphone, and a lot of the talk had been about, can we last long enough not to destroy ourselves? Like, can we hit a higher evolution as we're not destroying ourselves? And she goes to the microphone and she says, well, if everything is just going wrong, then like, what's the reason to live?
Oh, I totally understand that.
Yeah. Oh, me too.
There's the question. But I think that's I counter that thought with a quote that I heard from, I think it was Isaac Asimov, where he said, there may be other, I'm paraphrasing, there may be other universes somewhere where it's not rooted in conflict, but that's not what this one is. This one is rooted in conflict. And with that in mind, you have to fight for everything. You have to fight for quiet. You have to fight for peace of mind. You have to fight for your family. You have to fight for your health. You have to fight for everything. And if you're going to fight, and if you have to fight either way, then why would you not fight for something that you would find pleasant? And I think that one of the answers is just like, well, I've given up. But in a lot of ways, you can fight giving up. And if you have given up, then you can fight to contribute to things that maybe help people continue to fight. And I mean, it sucks. Who wants conflict? Who wants it? But it's also like saying it sucks that we have to eat to sustain ourselves. It's like, sure, it sucks, but it's a fact of life. So we can either kick rocks down the street complaining about it, or we can just get on with it. And so what is the reason for continuing on? Well, in a lot of ways, kids, and the horrible things that happen to kids every day, and the ups and downs of people dying and all these sorts of things, it's all a brutal reality. But if time is a human construct, then it's all happening at the same time, and your reasons to fight are an investment in the species and the potential of the species. It's like we're such an evolutionarily primitive state as a species right now. But if everything is a circle and it's all happening simultaneously, then by not giving up, what you're ultimately doing is you're protecting your own investment in the future. Not even the future, just everything resonates, and I think you can't change other people. You can only change yourself. All the raging against this and that and the other thing, all the ragings against the machines in the world are still going to be you're going to become a commodity, right? I think if you just work on really getting to the root of yourself, then maybe that will have ripple effects.
Yeah.
Or don't. I think there's that too. I mean, it's like, and who's to say one way is right or not? It's just the decisions that I've made, again, because of my bias, is to do these things, but I certainly don't claim it's the right way.
Yeah, I think, they gave a very good answer to that too. And it was a nice surprise because I thought Sean Lennon would kind of just be like, imagine all the planets and like
Sure.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was great. And,
What was the answer?
it was very similar to the one that you gave right now. And I don't remember who exactly gave it, but it was basically like, we're here and your only choice is to either die or live in what we have right now and live for your own happiness. And as you were saying also, they didn't say this, but this is it reminded me of a bad time in my life where I thought, well, if I can't be happy, maybe I can help other people. So,
Totally.
like I would go into our kitchen here and just grab a bunch of the food and just go give it to like some homeless people, because it's not like that I'm a great person or anything, but I was like, God, I can't feel happy right now. Maybe I can just go do something good.
I fought with the idea of altruism because I wondered if even humans are capable of it, right? It's like I had thought all our actions, helping homeless people or trying to make records that are constructive or any of these things, I wonder how much of that is just our own ego, like saying, well, then I can be the guy that knows that he's helping.
Mm-hmm.
And does altruism exist at all? Even the people who run animal shelters and all these things for those who can't speak for themselves, it's like, well, how much of that is rooted in your own, and maybe you were abandoned in some way, and it's a way of, and that's a real nasty thought, I find, because it's really easy to take that down to the point where it's like, well, everything that we do is selfish, and therefore we should do nothing, or be hedonistic as a result of whatever you can swallow guilt-wise, you should just do. But I remember going to a hospital and being with, my mother-in-law, who I had a real rocky relationship with, but she was on her way out, and I had a recognition at one moment where I was like, oh, I don't matter.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really healthy thing to sort of pull that questioning back, that whole, are humans incapable of doing anything for reasons other than their own self-interest? And it was nice to have that pulled back, because I think one of the roadblocks is, for me at least, is the hyper-analysis that goes into anything. And I can analyze my own motivations down to the point where everything I do is for the greater good, or everything I do is for a selfish reason.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, I think just by following it where it leads, and trying to clear your mind of that babble, then it becomes clear that there are really definite positive and negative things that happen in life, and you're going to be led in the direction that you should be. I think. I mean, I don't know.
I think I agree with you on the selfish thing, because I think being selfish can be very inherently positive.
Right?
Yeah, and
That's
I've heard
true.
you talk about selfishness before when you were talking about one of your heroes, Jim Henson,
Yeah.
and that he was somewhat selfish in his creativity, making all these scenes and puppets and all this stuff for his own pleasure. Of course, he was bringing happiness to a lot of people, but it was a sort of a selfish
It's interesting.
act
It's
with
interesting.
himself.
It's amazing how much guilt plays into our own trip, where you're doing things for people that are nice, yet you just are flagellating yourself constantly for being, oh, I'm not a good person. Daddy says I'm not a good person or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, But I think that's a really good point. That's a great point, and it's a point we should probably consider closing on here, just because I got to get back and play a show tonight.
Yeah,
it's been a great pleasure talking to you, man. And I gotta say as well, Sean Lennon. I remember I listened to Chibo Matto for years.
Yeah.
Love that band, and I think he's a bass player in it.
Is he the bass player?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And Chibo Matto are just great, man. Like, just great. So. Yeah, it's interesting that he's involved with that, because he kind of got the shit end of the stick from his dad. I think
it's hard to live up to those expectations.
Well, I think from what I heard, Julian Lennon got like the attention, and Sean Lennon was kind of like, a road accident or something. So he didn't really get any of the benefits of being a Lennon, but he got the So I'm glad that he's in that scenario, because man, that's
great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you, Graham. I really appreciate it.
Man, I could talk to you all day.
One day.
One day you got to come here for like 12 hours.
Thank you, buddy.
Shaking your hand. Everybody, make sure you go out and buy Transcendence. Again, an amazing record from the Devin Townsend Project. Buy it, listen to it in a stressful situation, because it'll make you feel better, just like it does for me personally. Thank you again, Devin. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much, Graham.
And there you go, ladies and gentlemen, the first ever Loudwire Podcast twofer.
The doubleheader. Better than baseball doubleheaders. Better than baseball single headers. Baseball's boring. Let's keep talking about metal, though.
Better than the Cubs versus the Indians, I must say.
Is that who's in it?
Yeah.
See, you know. It's embarrassing, Graham.
But we want to thank Brendon Small and Devin Townsend for both being a part of this podcast. We enjoyed them both very much. I enjoyed Dev, as you can probably tell from our very cerebral and all too serious conversation. I love the way that guy speaks, though. He's so fluid. He knows exactly what he wants to say as he's saying it. So I really respect that. I respect what he has to say. So that was a real pleasure for me. And Brendon was awesome also.
Yeah, it was crazy to see the visible frustration on his face for having something so close to you that you created, you brought up, you made this big, and the network acknowledges that they're going to make money off of it. You raise the money, and all you want to do is just have some closure, and no matter what he's doing, he can't get that. I can't even imagine what it's like going through that.
Yeah, he was super open about everything that happened, but it still just left so many questions, because he has so many questions himself over like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, like we got our answers, and then we still had the same questions, though. Like, okay, so we found out why it's not being released, but Christ, why is this not being released?
Yeah, it's like the best but least constructive conversation, because nothing, it's just a shame that it just seems like nothing's ever going to come of it, no matter how much sense it makes.
It's foolish, and it just seems like a bunch of bullheadedness at the network, and just give the guy some closure.
Yeah, give us all some closure. But he was also talking about how he thinks the Adult Swim people were just genuinely annoyed by the Metalocalypse Now campaign, which is pretty awesome. So,
keep pissing off the people at Cartoon Network.
I was going to say, if it's not going to happen, you might as well just have fun annoying them.
Yeah.
So just annoy them. Hell. You never know what's going to come of it. If you annoy someone enough,
they might give in.
It can't get any worse, I guess. We're not going to have any less of a finale.
Like if there was an organized day, we're not going to orchestrate it, but if all you guys listening want to pick a day and together bombard Cartoon Network, I'm sure we'll get a laugh out of it.
Yeah, we would very much enjoy that. Make sure to tag us. Oh, you know what? You can tag both of us on Twitter with each annoying tweet that you send to Adult Swim now. Isn't that right, Joe?
Yeah, because I have a Twitter page.
Joe has a Twitter. It only took 7 bloody episodes of us, talking about why you don't have a Twitter.
I gave in. Yeah. So you could follow me. It's at Ice Nerve Shatter. I took it from a Godflesh song off their first EP. Excellent. Not even my favorite song off it, but that title just rules and is so much fun to say, and nobody else took it. So of course, I tried a bunch of other stuff. It was all taken, except that one.
All right. So everybody add Joe at Ice Nerve Shatter.
Ice Nerve Shatter.
Ice Nerve Shatter.
Got it.
Chatter. You can follow me at GrahamWire on Twitter. Make sure to follow Loudwire on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Keep watching our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Loudwire Podcast on iTunes. Yes, hit that
button, not the gumdrop button.
What?
Shrek.
Oh, of course. So thank you all so much for listening to another episode of the Loudwire Podcast. We will be back next time. As always, I'm going to take off my glove. See ya.